Frustration is a silent thief. It steals your peace, clouds your judgment, and traps you in a cycle of stress. But what if I told you that the key to breaking free has been hidden in ancient Stoic wisdom for over 2,000 years? How often do we let frustration control our emotions instead of mastering it? A slow driver, a rude comment, an unexpected delay, and suddenly our entire mood shifts. We let external events dictate our inner state, but the truth is, frustration isn't caused by the outside world. It's caused by how we respond to it. In this video, we'll explore 7 powerful Stoic practices that will help you take control of frustration before it takes control of you. These are the same principles used by Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus to remain calm under pressure, maintain emotional balance, and cultivate unshakable resilience. And here's the surprising part. Mastering frustration doesn't require you to suppress your emotions. It doesn't mean pretending problems don't exist. It's about developing a mindset so strong that nothing external can shake your inner peace. By the end of this video, you'll have the tools to turn frustration into fuel for growth. Transform obstacles into opportunities and reclaim the mental clarity that frustration has stolen from you. But before we dive in, there's one fundamental truth you need to understand, and once you grasp it, frustration will never have power over you again. Control what you can, the power of letting go. Life is unpredictable. No matter how much you plan, how much you prepare, things will go wrong. The traffic jam that makes you late, the unexpected expense that drains your savings, the words spoken by someone else that cut deep. These moments frustrate us, making us feel powerless. But what if I told you that frustration is just an illusion? What if the secret to inner peace lies not in controlling the world, but in controlling how you respond to it? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." These words contain one of the most powerful lessons in Stoicism. They reveal a truth that many people never fully grasp. We suffer not because of what happens to us, but because of how we interpret it. The external world is chaotic. People are unpredictable. Plans fall apart. But in every situation, there are 2 elements: what is within our control and what is not. A Stoic learns to differentiate between the 2. Think about how much of our daily frustration comes from trying to control the uncontrollable. The person who cuts you off in traffic, the unexpected weather that ruins your plans, the rude remark from a stranger. We react, we fume, we complain. But does our anger change the situation? No, it only makes us more miserable. Imagine 2 people stuck in the same traffic jam. One is honking, swearing, gripping the wheel in frustration. The other sits calmly, listening to music, knowing that anger won't move the cars. The external situation is identical. The difference is in their mindset. One fights reality, the other accepts it. One suffers, the other does not. The same applies to bigger challenges in life. Let's say you lose your job. You can spend weeks resenting your boss, blaming the company, wishing things were different. Or you can shift your focus to what is within your control. Updating your skills, looking for new opportunities, improving yourself so that you emerge stronger. The first mindset keeps you stuck. The second moves you forward. A Stoic understands that there is freedom in acceptance. Acceptance is not weakness. It does not mean giving up or being passive. It means choosing where to direct your energy. It means recognizing that resisting reality is futile. And that true power comes from adapting, from responding wisely instead of reacting emotionally. Let's take a real-life example. Imagine an athlete at the peak of their career, suddenly suffering a devastating injury. They can no longer compete at the level they once did. At this moment, they have two choices. They can drown in self-pity, dwell on what they've lost, and let frustration consume them. Or they can shift their mindset. They can see this setback as an opportunity to coach, to inspire, to develop new skills, to evolve into something greater. The injury is outside their control. Their response is not. This is the power of letting go. Letting go of what you cannot change. Letting go of wasted energy on things that do not serve you. So many people hold on to past regrets, to grudges, to disappointments. They replay painful memories, relive old failures, and carry burdens that were never meant to be carried. But the past is unchangeable. No amount of frustration will rewrite history. What can be changed is how you let those experiences shape you. Think of someone you know who is consumed by resentment, someone who cannot move on from a perceived injustice or betrayal. Their bitterness eats away at them, poisoning their peace. But what if they chose to release that anger? What if they realized that by holding on, they are only harming themselves? Forgiveness is not about the other person, it is about freeing yourself. The next time you feel frustration creeping in, ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is no, let it go. If the answer is yes, take action, but do so with clarity, not with frustration. Imagine if everyone in the world practiced this simple principle. No more road rage, no more pointless arguments, no more sleepless nights over things that are already done, just people responding to life with wisdom instead of impulse. A world where frustration no longer dictates our actions, but where we dictate how we engage with the world. Now take a moment. Think of 3 things in your life that you cannot control, things that have been draining your energy, causing stress, a decision someone else made, a past mistake, an outcome you desperately wanted but never received. Now, let them go. Release them from your mind. They do not serve you. They do not define you. Because true power is not in controlling the storm. True power is learning to dance in the rain. Zoom out. Gain a bigger perspective. Life has a way of pulling us into the details. When something goes wrong, it feels overwhelming, as if the entire world has conspired against us. A missed deadline, a harsh word, a moment of embarrassment. In that instant, nothing seems more important. The frustration takes over. But what if you could step back? What if you could see your problems not from the narrow lens of the present, but from a greater perspective? Epictetus once said, "Don't wish for things to happen as you want. Wish for them to happen as they do, and your life will flow smoothly." This is the essence of Stoicism, not just acceptance, but perspective. Imagine yourself 10 years from now. Will today's problems still matter? The thing that upset you this morning, the mistake you made last week, will they have any significance in the grand scheme of your life? Most likely, they won't. Yet in the moment they feel enormous. Our minds tend to magnify difficulties. A minor inconvenience becomes a catastrophe. A small setback feels like the end of the world. But if you zoom out, everything shifts. Think about the last time you were deeply frustrated by something, and now, looking back, you barely remember it. That's because time has a way of shrinking our problems. What feels unbearable now will be nothing but a memory later. So why not take that perspective today? Imagine looking at your life from space. From such a distance, your entire existence is a tiny speck. The stress, the worries, the arguments, they are insignificant against the vastness of the universe. Even from a historical perspective, most of what we stress over will never be remembered. The Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Look at the past, at the empires that have risen and fallen. One day, even the greatest names will be forgotten. So why let small troubles disturb your mind? Consider a mistake at work. You might dwell on it, replaying the moment over and over. You worry about what others think, about the consequences. But will this one mistake define your career? Probably not. What defines you is how you respond. Do you let it consume you, or do you take the lesson and move on? The Stoic approach is clear. Acknowledge the event, learn from it, and let it go. Now, think of a moment when you were stuck in frustration, a time when you felt completely overwhelmed. What if, instead of reacting emotionally, you had paused? What if you had taken a deep breath and asked yourself, how will this affect me in a year, in 5 years? That simple question alone is enough to break the cycle of frustration. It reminds you that no moment is as permanent as it feels. A great way to practice this is what the Stoics called the view from above. Close your eyes and picture yourself rising above your current situation. First, imagine seeing yourself from the ceiling of the room you're in. Then, rise even higher. See your house, your neighborhood, your city. Keep going until you're looking at the earth from space. Suddenly, your individual problems seem so small. This is not to say they don't matter, but it puts them into perspective. Consider how often people allow small events to ruin entire days. Someone cuts them off in traffic, their coffee spills, a stranger makes a rude remark. But in the bigger picture, do these moments deserve so much energy? When you zoom out, you realize you have the choice to be upset or to let it pass. This shift in perspective builds mental resilience. Instead of reacting to life's small difficulties, you develop a sense of calm. You become unshaken by the trivial and more focused on what truly matters. If something won't matter in the long run, why let it steal your peace now? Take a moment now. Think of something that has been bothering you lately. A stress, a frustration, a regret. Now, step back. Imagine yourself looking at it from a distance. A year from now, will it still hold the same weight? 5 years? A decade? If the answer is no, release it. Let it shrink down to its true size. Because life is too vast, too precious, to be weighed down by things that will soon be forgotten. The power of now. Stay in the present moment. Time is always moving. The past drifts further away, and the future rushes toward us. Yet, so many of us are trapped in places that no longer exist or have yet to arrive. We replay old mistakes, regretting what we should have done differently. Or we worry about what's coming next, fearing outcomes that haven't even happened. And in doing so, we lose the only thing that is truly real, the present moment. Seneca once wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." But how often do we truly do this? How often do we allow ourselves to simply be where we are, without being pulled in different directions by our thoughts? Think about how frustration arises in your life. Is it not often rooted in something outside of the present moment? You feel regret because of something that happened yesterday. You feel anxious about something that may happen tomorrow. But right now, in this very moment, is there truly a problem? Imagine someone preparing for an important presentation. They spend days, even weeks, worrying. They play out worst-case scenarios in their mind. They lose sleep. They feel the tension in their body, and when the day finally comes, they do fine. Not perfect, maybe, but good enough. And suddenly all that stress seems foolish. All that mental suffering was for nothing. They carried the weight of the future on their shoulders, and it drained their energy. But what if they had trusted the present instead? What if they had simply focused on preparing, on doing what was within their control, rather than worrying about imagined failures? The mind is constantly jumping between past and future, but the Stoics teach us that peace, clarity, and even happiness can only be found in the now. This is why mindfulness, the practice of fully experiencing the present moment, is such a powerful tool. When you are mindful, you stop living in imagined realities and start engaging with life as it is. You stop running from the past or chasing the future. You simply exist, fully aware, fully alive. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, confine yourself to the present. He ruled an empire, faced wars, betrayals, and immense responsibility. And yet, he understood that even in the greatest chaos, all he truly had was the present. Right now, this breath, this action, this decision. The past could not be changed. The future was uncertain. But the present was his to control. And it is yours too. Think about the simple moments in life. The warmth of the sun on your skin, the laughter of a loved one, the sound of the wind moving through the trees. These moments exist only now. If you are lost in thought, lost in worry, you miss them. Life is not something that will happen someday. It is happening now. And yet, most people live as if they are always waiting for something. Waiting for happiness, waiting for success, waiting for the future to bring them what they seek. But what if what you seek is already here? What if peace is not something to be found, but something to be recognized in this very moment? So how do you practice this? How do you bring yourself back to the now? The Stoics would tell you, focus on what is in front of you. Whatever you are doing, do it fully. If you are eating, taste your food. If you are speaking to someone, truly listen. If you are walking, feel your steps. This is not about ignoring the past or neglecting the future. It is about not letting them steal your presence. The next time you feel frustration creeping in, pause. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, what part of this is happening right now? Is my suffering real? Or is it coming from my mind? More often than not, you will realize that frustration lives in memory or anticipation, not in reality. The moment itself is rarely unbearable. It is our resistance to it that causes pain. Try this. Spend just one day being fully present. Whenever you notice your mind wandering into regret, into fear, gently bring it back. Focus on what is here, now. It will not be easy. The mind is stubborn, always looking for something to worry about. But the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. And over time, you will realize something profound. Peace was never something you had to chase. It was here all along, waiting for you to notice it. Audit and manage your desires. Reassess what truly matters. What do you desire most in life? More money? A perfect relationship? Recognition? A life free of hardship? Most of us spend our days chasing something that always seems just out of reach. We tell ourselves, once I get this job, I'll finally be happy. Or, if only they loved me the way I love them, I'd feel complete. But what happens when we get what we wanted? Do we finally feel satisfied? Or does another desire take its place? Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And nowhere is this more evident than in our desires. We suffer because we long for things we don't have, and we suffer even more when we fear losing the things we do. The Stoics understood this trap well. They saw that unchecked desires don't lead to fulfillment. They lead to frustration, anxiety, and discontent. Because the more we crave, the more we feel like we are lacking. The more we chase, the more restless we become. Think about it. How often do we tie our happiness to things outside of our control? We want success, but the job market is uncertain. We want love, but another person's heart is not ours to command. We want everything to go our way, but life is unpredictable. And so, we suffer, not because life is unfair, but because we expect it to be something it is not. Imagine someone who dreams of a perfect job, one where they never have a bad day, where they are always appreciated, where they feel endlessly fulfilled. They finally land their dream position, and for a while, everything seems perfect. But then, challenges arise. A difficult boss, a heavy workload, unexpected setbacks. The illusion of perfection shatters and frustration sets in. But was it the job that failed them? Or was it their unrealistic expectation that such a job could exist? Or think about relationships. Many people enter them with a silent list of expectations. They should always understand me. They should never let me down. They should make me happy. But no one is perfect. People make mistakes. They have their own struggles, their own limitations. And so, when reality doesn't match the fantasy, resentment grows. But is it truly the other person who caused the suffering? Or was it the belief that they should be something other than what they are? This is the root of much of our frustration. We expect life to be different from what it is. We crave certainty in an uncertain world. We want people to act according to our script rather than their own. We expect external achievements to fill internal voids. But the more we chase, the more we feel like something is missing. So what is the solution? The Stoics would tell us, audit your desires. Step back and ask yourself, what do I truly need? And what am I only chasing because society, ego, or fear has told me to? There is nothing wrong with ambition, with wanting to improve, with striving for more. But when your happiness depends on getting what you want, you are setting yourself up for disappointment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." In other words, suffering is not caused by reality. It is caused by how much we attach ourselves to desires that reality may never fulfill. The key to inner peace is learning to differentiate between necessary desires and unnecessary ones. The Stoics divided desires into two categories. 1. Natural and necessary desires, things like food, shelter, meaningful relationships. These are essential for a balanced life. 2. Unnecessary and excessive desires, things like wealth, fame, power, or validation from others. These desires never have an end point. The more you feed them, the more they grow. Ask yourself, is what I'm longing for truly essential to my well-being? Or is it something I've been conditioned to want? If your happiness is dependent on external validation, on material success, on the perfect circumstances, you will always feel at the mercy of forces beyond your control. But if you learn to be content with what is within reach, with what is truly necessary, you will find a kind of freedom that most people never experience. Consider a man who once obsessed over climbing the corporate ladder. He believed that once he reached a certain salary, he would feel successful. But every promotion only brought new pressures, more responsibilities, more expectations, and no matter how high he climbed, it never felt like enough. Then one day he asked himself, why am I doing this? What do I actually want? He realized that it wasn't the job itself that he loved. It was the sense of purpose, the ability to provide, the intellectual challenge. When he let go of the need to constantly achieve more, he found himself enjoying his work in a way he never had before. Or imagine someone who constantly seeks validation in relationships. They feel loved when others praise them, but empty when they don't. They change themselves to fit what they think others want, hoping to be accepted. But the moment someone pulls away, their world crumbles. Why? Because they placed their self-worth in the hands of others, rather than within themselves. But what if they could let go of the need for approval? What if they could find fulfillment in who they are, rather than how others see them? That is true liberation. So how do you apply this? How do you escape the cycle of endless wanting? The next time you feel frustrated, pause. Ask yourself, what expectation is causing this frustration? Is this truly necessary for my well-being? Am I in control of this, or am I trying to control the uncontrollable? If the answer is no, if what you're chasing is outside of your power, if it's an endless pursuit with no finish line, let it go. Not because you don't care, but because you refuse to let your peace be held hostage by something that will never bring lasting fulfillment. Audit your desires. Let go of the ones that only bring suffering. And in doing so, you may discover that everything you truly need, you already have. Practice negative visualization. Prepare for the worst. We spend so much of our lives trying to avoid discomfort, trying to shield ourselves from failure, rejection, and loss. But in doing so, we become fragile, unable to face even the smallest of setbacks without feeling overwhelmed. The Stoics, however, had a different approach. Instead of running from the worst-case scenario, they encouraged us to face it, embrace it, and prepare for it. They called this practice negative visualization, and it is one of the most powerful mental tools you can develop. Seneca once asked, how does it help to make troubles heavier by bemoaning them? In other words, why should we suffer twice, once in reality and once in anticipation? The mind has a tendency to amplify our fears, to build worst-case scenarios in our imagination, making them seem insurmountable. But instead of letting these fears control us, what if we confronted them head-on? What if, instead of avoiding the possibility of failure, we visualized it, accepted it, and realized that even if the worst happens, we will still endure? Imagine you are preparing for a big presentation at work. You feel nervous, your hands are sweating, and your mind is filled with what-ifs. What if I forget my words? What if people judge me? What if I fail? This anxiety builds, consuming you before the moment even arrives. But what if Instead of fearing failure, you practice negative visualization. You sit down and imagine the worst. You see yourself forgetting a key point. You picture a moment of awkward silence. You imagine someone in the audience looking unimpressed. But then, you go further. What happens next? Maybe you pause, take a deep breath, and continue speaking. Maybe you make a joke and regain your composure. Maybe, even if it doesn't go perfectly, life moves on. The worst has happened. And yet, here you are. You are still standing, still breathing. And suddenly, the fear loses its power over you. The Stoics used this technique not to dwell on negativity, but to build resilience. By imagining the worst before it happens, they conditioned themselves to remain unshaken, no matter what life threw their way. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily, reminding himself that he would encounter selfish, ungrateful, and deceitful people, but that he could choose to remain undisturbed. Seneca encouraged his students to periodically live as if they had lost everything, to sleep on the floor, to eat only the simplest foods, not because they had to, but because by doing so, they would remove the fear of loss. This practice is not about pessimism. It is about mental preparedness. If you regularly visualize setbacks, failures, and even loss, they no longer hold the same power over you. You no longer live in fear because you have already faced these possibilities in your mind and accepted them. And paradoxically, this leads to greater peace. Think about how much of our frustration comes from resistance, from wishing that life were different, from being caught off guard by challenges we never prepared for. A relationship ends, and we feel as if the world is collapsing. But what if we had previously considered that all relationships are temporary, that nothing lasts forever, that love, like life, is impermanent? Would we still feel the same level of devastation? Or would we instead embrace the time we had and move forward with grace? Or consider financial struggles? Many people live in constant anxiety about losing what they have. But what if, instead of fearing poverty, you practiced living with less? What if you spent a weekend without luxury, eating simple meals, experiencing what it feels like to have less, only to realize that you can still be content, that your happiness does not depend on material wealth? When you understand that you can endure hardship, you stop fearing it. So how can you apply negative visualization in your daily life? Each morning, take a moment to reflect. Ask yourself, what is one challenge I might face today? A difficult conversation, a delay in your plans, a rejection. Now, imagine it happening. See yourself experiencing the discomfort, but then see yourself overcoming it. See yourself responding with calm, with wisdom, with acceptance. By doing this, you prepare your mind, not just for potential hardship, but for how you will handle it. This practice builds mental resilience. When trouble comes, you won't be surprised. You won't be paralyzed by fear. You will simply say, I knew this might happen, and I am ready. This is the power of negative visualization. It does not invite suffering. It eliminates the fear of suffering. It reminds us that even if the worst happens, we will endure. Try it today. Face your fears before they face you. And when life throws its challenges your way, you will stand firm, calm, steady, and unshaken. Amor, Fati. Love your fate. What if every obstacle in your life was actually an opportunity? What if every setback, Every failure, every heartbreak was meant to shape you, not break you. This is the essence of Amor Fati, a Stoic practice that teaches us to not only accept our fate, but to love it. Seneca once said, "Fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant," meaning you have two choices. You can resist what happens to you, fighting against reality, or you can embrace it, finding strength in whatever life throws your way. The Stoics understood that suffering doesn't come from events themselves, but from our resistance to them. When we say, "This shouldn't have happened," or "Why me?" we create frustration, anger, and pain. But when we say, "This happened. Now, how do I grow from it?" we transform struggle into power. Think about it. How many times in your life has something bad happened, only for it to lead to something better? Maybe you lost a job, only to find a new career path that fulfilled you in ways you never expected. Maybe a relationship ended, and at first it felt unbearable. But later, you realized it was exactly what you needed to grow. Maybe a plan failed, forcing you to take a different path, one that led to an even greater opportunity. The problem is, when we are in the middle of suffering, we don't see the bigger picture. We only see the pain, the loss, the frustration. But what if we trained ourselves to immediately ask, "How is this happening for me?" rather than to me? What if, instead of resisting fate, we embraced it? This is what the great Stoics practiced daily. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers and emperors, faced betrayal, war, and immense personal loss, including the deaths of multiple children. Yet, he wrote in his meditations, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." He didn't just endure hardship, he used it. Whatever life gave him, he turned it into fuel. This is Amor Fati. Imagine someone training for a marathon. They don't curse the pain in their legs or the exhaustion in their body, because they understand it's part of the process. The struggle makes them stronger. They don't wish for an easier race. They train to become better runners. Life works the same way. If we fight against reality, we only make things harder for ourselves. But if we embrace it, we can use every difficulty as an opportunity to grow. Think about Thomas Edison. After thousands of failed attempts at inventing the light bulb, he didn't see failure as defeat. Instead, he said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." He understood that failure was part of the journey, that it wasn't something to resent, but something to embrace. The same applies to everyday life. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, late for an important meeting. Most people would get frustrated, stressed, even angry. But what if you saw it as a gift? A moment to pause, reflect, or listen to an inspiring podcast. Or let's say you receive unexpected bad news. An opportunity you were counting on suddenly disappears. You have two choices: waste energy complaining, or ask yourself, "How can this make me better?" This is where Amor Fati becomes a superpower, because when you stop resisting life, you start flowing with it. Instead of being dragged by fate, you walk alongside it. Instead of seeing obstacles as unfair, you see them as necessary, stepping stones on your journey of growth. So how do you apply Amor Fati in daily life? The next time something doesn't go your way, pause. Take a deep breath. Instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "How is this happening for me?" Find the lesson, find the opportunity. Remind yourself, this is part of my story, and I choose to love it. This shift in mindset transforms frustration into power. It turns resistance into acceptance, and acceptance into strength. So, the next time you face hardship, don't fight it. Welcome it. Love it. Because every challenge carries a hidden gift, if you're willing to see it. Memento Mori. Remember you will die. If today was your last day, would you still be worried about the things that trouble you now? Would you still hold on to grudges, waste time on distractions, or hesitate to do what truly matters? The Stoics had a practice that served as a powerful reminder of life's impermanence. Memento Mori, which means, remember, you will die. This idea is not meant to be depressing. It is not about living in fear of death. Instead, it is a wake-up call, a way to bring clarity and urgency to our lives. Seneca wrote, "Let us balance life's books each day as if we'd come to the very end." He understood that when we live with the awareness of our mortality, we make better choices. We focus on what truly matters, and we find inner peace. Think about the last time you were frustrated. Maybe a co-worker annoyed you, or traffic made you late, or someone's comment upset you. Now, imagine that you only had a few days left to live. Would any of that still matter? Would you still waste your energy on anger or resentment? Or would you focus on love, gratitude, and the things that bring you fulfillment? Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, kept this idea close to him. Every morning, he reminded himself that this could be his last day, not because he was morbid, but because it made him appreciate life more fully. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Imagine if you lived every day with that mindset. How much unnecessary worry and stress would disappear. When we accept our mortality, something shifts within us. The small irritations of life lose their power. Fear fades because we realize there is no time to waste on things that do not serve us. We stop procrastinating on what matters, whether it's pursuing a dream, making amends, or simply enjoying the present moment. Look at history. So many people spend their lives chasing wealth, power, and status, only to realize at the end that none of it mattered. How many people have regretted not spending more time with loved ones, not expressing how they truly felt, not pursuing what made them feel alive? Memento Mori is a way to avoid those regrets before it's too late. A man once asked a Stoic philosopher how he could stop wasting time. The philosopher answered, "Live as if you are already dead." This doesn't mean living recklessly, it means living with purpose. If you knew your time was limited, what would you do differently? Would you still be afraid to take risks? Would you still hold back on telling someone how much they mean to you? Memento Mori is not just about thinking of death, it's about using that awareness to live more fully. Every morning when you wake up, remind yourself this day is a gift. Everything you have, your breath, your health, your loved ones, is not guaranteed tomorrow. Knowing this, how will you live today? This is why the Stoics embraced death, not as something to fear, but as a teacher. They knew that remembering death is the key to living well. So the next time you find yourself angry, anxious, or distracted, pause. Ask yourself, if this were my last day, would this still matter? Because one day it will be. And on that day, you will either look back with regret or with peace, knowing you lived fully, loved deeply, and made the most of every moment. Every challenge we face, every moment of frustration, every setback, is an opportunity to practice the wisdom of the Stoics. Control what you can, let go of what you cannot. Shift your perspective. Be present. Manage your desires. Prepare for the worst. Love your fate. And always remember your time is limited. These Stoic practices are not abstract ideas. They are tools. Tools that you can use every day to control emotions, build mental resilience, and find inner peace in a chaotic world. But knowledge alone is not enough. The real transformation happens when you apply these principles to your life. So, here's a challenge for you. Starting today, pick one practice and commit to it. Maybe you start by observing your thoughts, questioning your frustrations, or simply reminding yourself that this moment is all you truly have. Small changes, consistent action. That's what leads to true growth. If this video helped shift your perspective, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more Stoic teachings that can help you navigate life's challenges with wisdom and strength. And before you go, share your thoughts in the comments. Which Stoic principle resonated with you the most? Which one will you start practicing today? Your journey toward a stronger mind and a calmer life starts now. Will you take the first step?